It's Wednesday, February 19th, 2020. Yes, that is Air Force One sitting right behind me. That beautiful giant 747 sitting about 400 yards behind me. I don't know if you can see it that well, but there it is, Air Force One. So another angle, Air Force One right here on this Wednesday, February 19th, 2020. President landed here about an hour ago. So beautiful, beautiful plane. Looking at about 80, 81 degrees today here in Palm Springs, California. President now over at Larry Ellison's house in Rancho Mirage. So I hope you guys enjoyed the short video of Air Force One. Me and my buddy were over in the area. I only live about 6 minutes from the airport, but we were really close to the airport. We decided to stop by, check it out, and I wanted to shoot a quick video, share it with all of you guys. I must say, Air Force One is an absolutely incredible, amazing aircraft. What an amazing piece of machinery. I don't know if you can see that. I don't know if we're going to be able to see that. That is one of the military planes that carries the president's limo. So that was very cool to see that military plane fly over. That's the plane that transports the president's limousine. They flew in yesterday, dropped off the limo, and picked it up today, and they just flew out. So very, very cool to see that. But let's talk about what's happening right now here in America, stuff that concerns you, concerns me. There was an article today with some good news. Building permits surged to 13-year highs thanks to warm weather in the Northeast. Now, is it warm weather or is it creative financing? Is it exotic loans? Is it subprime loans? Is it low interest rates? Or is the economy getting better? What's interesting is we had a 77.6% year-over-year increase in multifamily starts, but we only had a 4.6% year-over-year increase in single unit housing. So is it more apartment buildings? Is it more Section 8? Don't really know. I find it hard to believe when I read statistics like this that we're now seeing housing permits or building permits surge when 50% of U.S. workers make less than $32,000 a year, when 25% of the country now needs credit cards to just survive. When people have no savings, nobody, what is it? 44% of Americans don't even have $400 saved up. Yet we have a building permit surge in America. It's hard to figure it out. It's really confusing. Let's also talk about what happened in the markets today. NASDAQ and S&P record highs. Dow Jones up. Infections, shortages, factory closings, supply chains breaking, none of it matters, okay? None of it matters. We're now being told that everything is under control, nothing to worry about. But they don't tell you that the Fed had to come in again today and inject another $55 billion into these markets. What if the Fed no longer was injecting liquidity into these markets? What would happen if the Fed was no longer in the stock market, buying stocks, buying bonds, was no longer the buyer of last resort? What would happen? This thing is so fake. It's so propped up. But everything's okay. Building permits are surging. NASDAQ and S&P record highs. Dow Jones had a good day today. But what's really interesting is gold and silver surge yet again today. So those days where we would see the market up and gold and silver hammered, those days don't seem to be as normal as they once were. Gold and silver now surging with the stock market. So what is that telling us? It's telling me that there's people out there that aren't buying all of this propaganda, that there's people out there with real concerns, people out there with fear. They're going to cash, they're going to gold, they're going to silver, and not everybody is buying the illusion. U.S. national debt jumped by $1.3 trillion in 12 months. We are now at $23.3 trillion of debt. If you include unfunded liabilities, Medicare, Medicaid, unfunded pensions, we are around $200 trillion in debt. So Anybody can tell me how great the economy is. They can tell me how great the stock market is. They can tell me how great everything is. But at the end of the day, it's horrible because this country's bankrupt. $23.3 trillion of debt. If the economy is booming, if the stock market is real, how come we're not paying debt down? How come we just jumped another $1.3 trillion in 12 months with debt? Why are we not paying any of this down? It would seem that the average Joe Blow, the average household debt would be decreasing, not increasing, if they were making money. The problem is we have more money going out than coming in. So who's holding all this debt? Who's buying all this debt? Roughly about $6 trillion is being held by foreign holders. So when we look at this self-financing Ponzi scheme a little closer, you begin to realize it's all nothing more than a giant illusion, a giant Ponzi scheme. The Federal Reserve is now holding $2.33 trillion of U.S. debt. The U.S. Government entities now are holding $6.03 trillion of debt. This includes Social Security, trust funds, and government pension funds, holding $6.03 trillion of debt. U.S. commercial banks are holding nearly $1 trillion of U.S. debt. And who's holding the most debt? It's U.S. investors, bond funds, pension funds, insurance companies, hedge funds, private equity firms, cash-rich companies like Apple. They're holding $7.22 trillion of U.S. debt. That's 31% of all U.S. debt. I'm telling you, when this market turns, debt is going to be the killer. We look at states like Illinois. Total state and local retirement debt in the state of Illinois now stands at $424 billion. Cities in Illinois are cutting services just to pay pensions. That means that they can't hire garbage men. They can't hire police officers, firefighters, street cleaners, people at the water district because they can't afford it because they've got to pay the pension. They can't pay workers and pensions at the same time. And remember, this isn't just Illinois. Illinois is one of the bad ones, but there's a handful of states in the same predicament as Illinois. And the problem is only going to get worse as the pension crisis here in America only gets worse. And remember, these pensions are heavily invested in the stock market. When these markets turn, the good times are going to be over. What is going to happen? You know the answer to this. You know what's going to happen to these pensions. They're going to take massive haircuts or they will be obliterated altogether. So if you're dependent on a pension, make sure today that you are ensuring your future by putting away some gold, putting away some silver, putting away some cash, and not being 100% dependent on your pension. Don't be 100% dependent on your 401k or your money market. There is no guarantees in life, okay? There is one guarantee. The bubbles always pop. And when they do, your pensions, your 401ks, your money markets are going to be annihilated. And if you don't have a plan B, you're taking a very risky chance. U.S. producer prices rise at fastest pace in 9 months as service costs soar. U.S. producer prices spiked 0.5% month over month. Now remember, producer price excludes food, energy, and trade services. If this was included, you would see a shocking number. Apparel, jewelry, footwear, and accessories retailing jumped 10.3%. The indexes for machinery and vehicle wholesaling, health, beauty, optical goods, inpatient care, guest room rental, and portfolio management all rose. Iron and steel scrap rose 13.9%. Ask yourself, how much is your paycheck rising? They tell you that national inflation is only 2%. That is an absolute joke. I see grocery store prices rising 2% a week. So I'm going to wrap it up right here today, but I want to go over one last article with you. It's titled Glitch or Hack, Countless Fidelity Accounts Showing Zero Balance. People were writing in saying, when I log in, I don't see my accounts. Another person wrote in, I can't see any of my Fidelity accounts. I notice other users are experiencing the same. Another person wrote, everything was fine 20 minutes ago. Now, all of my accounts and positions are no longer showing. And another person wrote, showing me zero balance, please fix. So was it a glitch or a hack? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because if you don't hold it, you don't own it. This just reinforces my personal beliefs of why you need to be holding your money, why you need to be holding your assets, because we are going to see more cyber attacks. We will see more glitches. Things can disappear in the blink of an eye. And if the system went down, if there was a cyber attack, if there was a grid going down, and you could not get to your money because it's on a computer screen, it's at one of these financial institutions, what would you do? Could you survive? You must have cash. You must have silver, you must have gold. You need to have hard, tangible assets in a place that you can get to in an emergency. People who are 100% dependent on the system, 100% dependent on these financial institutions, and 100% dependent on a computer and electricity, they're taking a huge, huge chance. We will see more cyber attacks. At some point, I think it's naive to think that America is never going to see a grid be attacked or a grid go down. If there was a natural disaster and you have no electricity, no power, how are you going to access money? If you don't have physical cash, if you do not have physical assets, you're going to be in big trouble. And I'm not telling anybody to cash out their 401k or their money market and just go buy gold or just go buy silver. I believe in diversification. If you can afford to own some land or an income producing property or some land that you can raise cattle, grow food on, has a water source, phenomenal. If you have the money that you can buy some silver, buy some gold, diversify from just being in a money market or a 401k. I just believe the more weapons you have, the better chance you have to survive. But if you're going to be one-dimensional and just go, oh, I have a 401k, I'm all set, or my pension's going to be there in 10 years for me, and you know everything's going to be great, I think that is really dangerous thinking. And again, I'm not a financial advisor, but I believe diversity and having more weapons gives you a higher chance of survival. So if you do have hard assets, if you do have cash, if you do have some cryptos, if you do have some money in your 401k, great, you're diversified. You're not one-dimensional. But I'm a big believer in cash. I'm a big believer in gold. I'm a big believer in silver, and I'm a big believer in real estate if you can pay it off, or if it's producing income. But remember, if you have an income producing property and you have a huge mortgage on that property and this economy takes a dump and your renters no longer have a job, what are you going to do? So, these are all things we have to think about. But again, glitches, hacks, cybersecurity, grids, all that. If you don't hold it, you don't own it. I'm not telling people out there to cash everything out of the stock market or their 401k. But what I am saying is you need to be holding some real tangible assets, because in an emergency, if the lights go out, all that matters is what you're holding in your hands, period. Computer screens, electricity doesn't work. What are you holding in your hands? Can you survive? I'm going to leave it there today. So much happening. We'll see. We're going to see what transpires tomorrow. We're going to see how much more money they have to pump into the illusion tonight to keep this whole thing going. I'm telling you, it's getting very, very scary when we're seeing this amount of debt being created to pump this whole illusion along. It's going to be ugly. And remember, it's going to be the 99% that pay the price. The 1%, they're getting out, or they're already out of this Ponzi scheme. They're holding the assets, they're holding the cash, they're holding the land, they're holding the gold, the silver, the fine art, the collectible automobiles. they're holding the assets, and they're going to leave the 99% holding the bag of paper. So make sure that you are taking all preparations, preparing, and make sure that you are walking close to God and praying for this country. We've never seen a time like this in history. This is just one of the most exciting and amazing times, but also one of the most dangerous times we have ever seen. This is going to blow up. Again, don't worry about infections. Worry about the debt that is going to implode this economy and the stock market. Remember, there's one thing for sure. Gold and silver will never be worth zero. And another thing, bubbles all pop, okay? We have so many bubbles, they're not going to pop, they're going to explode. And they're going to wipe out the wealth of so many people, the futures of so many people here in America that trusted the system, trusted the institutions, trusted the banks, trusted the government. The biggest wealth transfer in history is coming. Make sure you prepare.